Good evening and welcome back to the Muddy Creek Podcast. Tonight I have several guests. I'm really excited to have them on. We decided to do the show tonight because we hear a lot of people that go out in the field. They have negative experiences, sometimes positive experiences, but they always have the luxury to go back to the car or to leave the research area. But when you have them on your property and you have to live there 24/7, you can't always retreat from negative activity or negative experiences. And I thought it was very important to bring people together tonight to talk about their experiences. Everyone here, with the exception of me, live on property where they have had to learn to share land with Bigfoot and Sasquatch. It's not always been a positive experiences, and it can be downright frightening at time when you see grown men and women that have to alter their life in certain times to live around what exists on their property. That's not a game. And I think it's very important to hear their stories. We're going to have a roundtable with them tonight, and they're going to be blunt and honest. If you have questions, please do ask questions. Most of you are familiar with everyone here. We are all family. They're all good people, and I'm very honored that they took the time out of their busy lives tonight to be on the show with us. So, what I would like to start, and any one of you can take this question. When you first, what is the biggest misconception about having Sasquatch on your property, that when you hear people speaking about how they wish they had it on their property, what's the one thing you would just like to go ahead and put out there? And let's just start with that. Whoever wants to take the question.
I'd say they're
Well,
wrong.
yeah. Well, I can tell you, it definitely changes everything. It's first off, you got to get over the fact that they're real, and then the just the changes that go on your property. At first, they were kind of interacting with me. I would make a sound, they would make, we'd mimic back and forth, and you would think that they were some sort of friendly creature out there. But many times I'd be walking in the woods and I'd come across a growl, and you would realize that there was nothing friendly going on out there. They really don't want much to do with you. I don't think they do. But I would always feel like a fear when I was out there, and I'd always end up talking to myself or singing or doing something to combat the nervousness I had when I was out there. And I don't think that they want to interact with us in any way other than the mimicking. That's the only interaction I've ever had with them. But they're not the friendly little creatures that people think they are.
Uh, PJ and Paul. And Paul, welcome. Thank you.
Well, I mean, for me, my encounter, it wasn't like it charged at me or anything, but it was just like I had said before, when my guardian angel, and I believe in the guardian angels 100%, whenever she said, don't look at it, I knew it was for a reason. And like I've said before, I believe the good Lord stepped in that day and saved my life. I don't think I'd be sitting here. I think it had bad intentions. Now, do I think they're all that way? I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's the only, I guess you could say, bad thing that's happened, other than, the trees going down. I mean, I was growled at, and this is something that, I mean, this is our property that we bought, and so when you have to go outside and on your own property and feel like you have eyes on you 24/7, no matter what you're doing, outside or whatever, and that you have to be careful, you have to have your head on a swivel, you stay on guard the whole time. There's no, or for me, I don't know really how it is for Paul, but for me, that's how it is. And I love living here. I mean, it's beautiful here. But, that part of it right there is what makes it really, really hard, for me. It's just, I don't feel safe. It's kind of like when you go swimming in the ocean, you're going to constantly wonder, is there a shark underneath me? I mean, that's kind of the way it feels. So.
Only when you come out the ocean, you don't get a break from that feeling.
No. I mean, you look out. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
What's that?
Paul, is there something you wanted to add?
Oh, I was just gonna say, it does change your life. Every time I step out of the house, that's the first thing on my mind when I walk out in the mornings or whatever. When I get ready to go to work, it's as soon as I step out that door, it's first thing I think of. So it does change your mind when I go out into the woods to do anything. It's on my mind.
All the time.
Yeah. So it does change your lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, we are a threat to them, even if any threat you try to remove. So I'm sure they think the same way.
Mm-hmm.
But I do.
It don't bother me to go out into the woods. I walk this place all the time. But it is on my mind while I'm out there.
Greg?
Well, for me, here's the thing. I just like to say that, yeah, I don't think all of them's just bloodthirsty and they won't just eliminate people and kill everybody they can find. And that, we'll just put that with it, that I don't think a lot of people get it in their mind that these things are just all peaceful. I think there's kind of a happy medium. And I approach it just like the people that live out west or Alaska. If you're dealing with, let's say somebody in Alaska has got polar bears around their house. Well, the polar bear's probably not up there trying to push their door in and eat everybody in the house. But I bet that person's not out there trying to hand a Snickers bar to the polar bear, or it'd take me 2 seconds to go on my phone and type in salmon fishing in Washington and, pull up video after video of guys standing with waders on in the water catching salmon. And there's grizzly bears walking all around them within 15, 20 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're not eating those fishermen. But in the right deal, you walk up, you spook that bear's hungry, he's angry, he's moody, they're in heat, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That thing it'll eat you. They won't even find a bone left. And that's one of the way I deal with them here is I know they're out there. I know how big they are. I've done seen them too many times. They would have no problem doing whatever they wanted to me. And there's really not a whole lot I can do about it. And it just changes your whole outlook. And that's what I ask people is like, look, where you live, if you don't have any kind of animal, if you don't have a cougar, if you don't have bears, if you don't have something that could kill you, and then all of a sudden you realize that, hey, I opened my door and there was a bear growling at me. From there on out, every time you walk outside, whether that bear is there looking at you or not, that's on in your mind. Oh crap, that thing was here and it's on this property. And ever so often you go out and you see a track. You may not have saw that bear again, but he's still there. And let's say you go outside and you're cooking on the grill. Well, you hear the thing making racket over here and it's growling. Well, you know what's doing it. You've done seen it. It's there. And you know that animal has the ability to end your life.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what living when you're, and it's not like, hey, I've went to a state park or a federal park and I saw this animal that could take me out, but I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to drive 8-10 hours back home where I don't deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
And things all flowers and roses.
Yeah.
No, it's at my home. This is supposed to be my place. And when I go out, let's say like right now, if I got up, went out to my truck to get a cold drink out, the first thing I'm gonna do when I go about 7 feet right here and open this door is, and you know, it's dark. It's dark outside. It's a little bit different than it's daylight because you can see. But when I open that door, first thing I'm gonna do is look through the glass door at as far as I can see and see what's in the yard.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm gonna walk down and go to my truck and look. I got a light out here. It's still lights the yard up pretty good, but it's just lighting up right there on me.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, look, I mean, I am 6'1". I'm 6'1" and weigh about 200 pounds. I've grown up plenty rough. I tell people, look, I've rolled in the mud, the blood, and the beer. You know, I've been in numerous fights and I've held my own a lot. But before I walked out right now, if I got up on this podcast and walked out to my truck, which is about 25 feet from where I'm sitting, I'm going to go right here. Well, I can nearly reach it from here. I'd have to get up to get it. But I'm going to carry a 357 Magnum pistol with me to go to my truck to get a cold drink, walk back inside. And I would do the same thing if I was in the mountains and I knew there was grizzly bears outside.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd be stupid not to.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, but people don't realize that these things, when you've got something around your house that's that big physically and could absolutely end you with no problem,
Mm-hmm.
your whole life changes. And I got it. People don't believe in them. So be it. But when the reality that like I've lived in, I know Pam and Paul, I know Flatrock. I just met Don on right before the show. But when you got people like us that's experienced this, and it's not all the time, it's not every day. It ain't like, hey, I was going, why didn't you get a picture of them? Well, I don't know when I'm going to see the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't around with my phone like this everywhere I go.
Right.
And I'll promise you, if you've had a bad encounter with these things, you're not worried about trying to record anything or photograph anything. You're not worried about proving it to anybody. You're worried about, how am I going to stay alive? What have I got to do to make sure I'm safe? Because I've done been on the wrong side of these things. I've done been bluff charged too many times, and they weren't happy. They wasn't coming up to me to holler happy birthday. Wasn't happening. I mean, it was they meant ill will, 100% ill will.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what, for me, a lot of people think, man, I wish I had them around my house. But I promise you, that's totally different than being able to load up in the car and drive somewhere and possibly have an encounter. Then you go back home where everything's like everybody else is normal. It's just a whole different normal that you have to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Vicky's muted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that habit, sir. I have a cat that, y'all know Swamp Kitty. But Rock, on your land, your mother was tormented. She was afraid. Your wife left the property for a while.
Yep.
People don't. Oh, thank you, Patrick. People don't see that part of it. They don't see that you're stuck on that land. That land is what you put your life savings in. That land is where you made a home. And for the people that tell you, well, they were there before you were, what do you have to say to that after what your wife and your mother
Well,
went through?
I do believe they were there before we moved there. With my wife, just here within the last month since John and Phyllis left the house, we've had something with claws just come breaking down our door. My wife be sitting in a room. Next thing you know, bang, bang, bang on the side of her wall. So she's getting a good experience of it. But, it's totally different when you got these creatures on your properties. I mean, I agree with all three of you guests right there. All three of them. With Don, these creatures ain't nice. They don't want nothing to do with us. With Miss PJ and Paul, it's totally unexpected when these things show up.
Mm-hmm.
With Greg, These things are dangerous. When John and Phyllis was at the house, I believe we got bluff charged when I took them over in the high grass. It's not a pleasant thing to experience when they do that. And, I mean, I didn't want this life. I don't want this life, but I'm stuck in it. And I'm going to work with it the best I can by leaving these creatures alone. When they come at us, if we're out in the woods and they come at us, we're backing out. We're going back to the house. If, and I don't really care who likes it or not. I don't care if it's a multi-millionaire out there wanting to get that footage. Sorry, dude, you're going back home. Going back to my house. Leave them alone because we live there.
Mhm.
And when they come hit your house, Greg knows, when they come hit your house, that's not a fun feeling. Knowing that something that big is right outside your door. It's not fun. It is not. And it's not a great experience. And that's me. I mean, I won't even. I haven't even got to the point where I go in the woods by myself yet, and that's just the way it is. Because you don't know if they're just right there looking at you. You don't know.
One thing I'd like to say, talking about just on what Ken's talking about, when these things, when he's saying when they hit your house, people think about like if a person, a grown man, was outside and hit the wall, and let's say you hit it with a fist as hard as you could hit it. If a grown man hit my cabin right here, this cabin is 1,200 square feet. It's not huge, but it's 30 by 40, and it's built really strong. When these things come up and hit my wall, it shakes the whole cabin. I'm talking about I can be sitting in my recliner and my recliner will shake. That's how hard they hit the wall. We're not talking about a bunch of kids coming up knocking on the wall or a neighbor trying to spook you. No, when I'm talking about when they slap your house, it will shake the whole house. Now, Ken, do they hit your walls that hard too?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah, it'll bring you off wherever you're sitting. It'll bring you up on your feet real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick.
Now I get them pounding the ground up here a lot. I can feel it at night. And before I had my sighting up here, that's what I used to feel up in the woods was boom, boom, boom in the ground. But once I had my sighting, that stopped up in the woods. But at nighttime, they come around and boom, 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 they hit the ground near the house. They don't really come close to my house. But if I go outside, for the first few years, I was researching them, trying to find tracks, hair, whatever. And every time I would go up close to their area where they bed, they would come down to my house that night. And as soon as I step outside, they would crash through the woods and then just stop, all three of them. And then they would just stand there. I know they could see me, but I didn't know what to do. I would just look around. I couldn't see them. But only when I went into the area. So around 2019, 2020, I stopped researching and I went back to my regular activity. I don't even look for them anymore, but they still make themselves known. And like PJ and Paul was saying, you go outside and they're watching you. They know when I go outside.
Mhm.
They're always watching. That was one of the reasons I could never get a picture or a trail cam, or because every time I put a trail cam up, they would either rip it off or they would scream at the trail cam at night. And I would just walk up and take the trail cam off and bring it back in the house.
Mhm.
But one thing I did do is I would continually go up onto my property even at night, just to let them know I'm not going to stop going up there. And I kind of lost the fear, which is probably not good, but I did lose the fear of them after about 5 years after I saw them. So.
I actually have two questions. First question is, do you think they would hurt you if you approached them? But
Yes.
before we go there, Paul, how did it make you feel when that happened to PJ?
I was mad, but I actually, people probably think I'm stupid, but I actually told them. I walked out there and told them to leave her alone, leave us alone. So.
But the one thing in common too is you guys pray over your land the same as Greg does.
Mhm.
That whether you're Christian or not, I'm Christian, but the power of God seems to move them back.
Mhm.
And I put it out there if no one else does. But the question is, do you think they would hurt you if you approached them?
I'm
say
kind of like
yes.
Greg. I'm sorry. I'm kind of like Greg. I think it might depend on the mood that it's in. If you spook it, or I think situations may vary on that, But I think they are very apt to hurt you or take you out. Yeah.
I mean, just like I said, I look at them just like if I was dealing with a grizzly. I mean, we could look at 1,000 videos that people's made with grizzly bears, like in some of these parks where people are stupid enough to walk up to them, and the grizzly may or may not tear them all to pieces.
Right.
I mean, it's situational. I
Mhm.
mean, everything is going to be up to what situation you're in and what's going on. I mean, it's as far as somebody going up, and I tell people, look, Harry and the Hendersons was a movie. That was a Hollywood movie.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's I mean, I know, like I said, I know that there's people that they say that they've lived around these things for years. They never had a bad encounter. And that's great. I'm not saying I don't believe them. I'm just saying that I've lived around them for about 25 years, and I've had the bad encounters. Now I've had the good encounters too. And I think they're like people. I mean, I really do. I think they're like people as far as some of them's good, some of them's bad, and all of them could be either way.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd say this. Some run, some stand their ground, and then some come at you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the three choices of these creatures going to have. They're either going to run, they're going to stand the ground, or they're going to come at you.
Mhm.
And two of them scenarios, I'm just not willing to deal with.
Yeah.
Even with researchers out there, I'm not going to deal with it. Because they're at my house, and we got to deal with this once the researchers are gone. And
Mm-hmm.
some things like something happens every time somebody comes over. They come right up and they, I guess, can show their displeasure by hitting on my house or scratching down the door, and little things like that. And, but it's
Mm-hmm.
worth it, to have these people come out, experience their experience because they've never had an experience before. But people's got to understand, they're getting what they like, but they bringing others into it that don't want nothing to do with it.
Mhm.
And it's got to. I've stopped bringing many people over. I've said no to a lot of people,
Yeah.
and and it's gonna get to a point where I'm just gonna bring over my friends now instead of everybody else. I mean, it's just getting out of hand. It's getting a little out of hand.
Let me say this. Thank you, Leonard, for that. I appreciate it. Um, he says, thank you, Miss V, and contributions to subject matter. Thank you, Leonard. So Amber said, and she brought up a good deal. It really makes a difference who you have on your property, because the wrong person, it doesn't just affect you, it affects your daughter, your son, your wife,
Mm-hmm.
your mother, your animals,
Yeah.
your livestock, your livelihood, the hunting, farming on the land. How how important is it to get that to people? And have you had incidents where someone's been on your property and they just flat out didn't like them and you paid a price for it?
I usually, if people come over and want to walk up into the woods, I will sit in front of my house with the person and we will sit there and talk throughout the afternoon. We'll stay outside and they will let me know if they want them up there or not. And they'll come down and do some loud vocals. Usually the owl vocals is what they do. And if they come down and do some loud vocals, I don't bring the people up there. And I've had friends that have been coming here for many years and they know them. But if I bring somebody new here, they really don't like, they don't want them up there because they know the behavior of me and my friends that have been here for a while. They know that we're not a threat and they know that I'm going to continue to go up there, but I do give them that. I'll sit here in front of the house with somebody and they'll let me know if they want them up there or not. I've had a few people that don't go up there. I won't bring them up there,
Well, I've had them to really react on certain people that I've carried. They didn't react in a good way at all. I mean, it was just like certain people, they don't know them, they don't trust them for some reason. But I've also had the absolute opposite of that. And the one person that undoubtedly these things love to see show up is Misty. Because when Misty shows up, these things, there's going to be something go on. I mean, of all people, if somebody said, "Hey, who could you get to come to your place that you think you would have an encounter?" and that's her, and I don't know what the deal is, but it's like when she's here, they know she's here. That the time before last when she came, she pulled up outside. She hadn't been out of the vehicle 5 minutes. It sounded like we were at the primate exhibit at a zoo. Through the woods, less than 100 yards, it sounded like they was 5 or 6 gorillas, chimpanzees, and monkeys. I mean, like having an uproar. And it was just out of nowhere, but right after she got out of the vehicle. I mean, it's absolute. I can't explain that. But it's like some people they're drawn to, and some people they hate.
I say this with 3 different researchers. One being my friend that's right here with me right now. When he comes over, it's like they're just always watching. They give a vocal or two, but mostly you just gotta get eye shine. With Pat, Miss Pat, Joe, Bud, and Angie, when they come over, it's mostly all vocals. When John and Phyllis come over, um, they said they seen one out there, seen the face of one. I took them over to the high grass area, and this one, don't know if it was the same one, but they was 2 hard stomps, and then there was a sampling breakage. And I felt that, we interrupt them, or we just got too close to them, or they just didn't want us in that area, showed their little tail, and, even though they didn't want to go, I insisted that we go, and they did. They came back to the house with me. And but that's 3 different ways right there that they can interact with people. Not saying that they didn't like John and Phyllis out there. It's just the way it was, just a situation where we might have just got too close to one that could have had a youngin. May not. We were just in an area that, in that situation, they didn't want us to come no further. It done its thing. We backed out, and that's the way it went with 3 different researchers. All 3 different things. All 3.
Well, you have Pam, and I've seen a video that PJ put out, and it kind of sticks with me because we were, of course, us girls have a a chat going behind the scenes, and she had put a video up of her going down the driveway at night, and I was joking with her, and I says, your video has 2 zip codes because it's a long driveway. But she had made the comment, I hope a tire don't go flat or the vehicle doesn't break down. And that's a constant worry because she has a long driveway. She has 2 zip codes, literally. But when you look at it like that, when she said that, it really hit me hard. That is a constant worry, and those are things we seem to forget. And she also come back and said that there's certain things that they may do at the house that if guests want to go outside, she's always on edge about the guests going outside. Is there anything you want to follow up with that, PJ or Paul?
Well, just like, well, as far as the drive, I mean, not only is it a long drive, but there's no phone service. So if I were to have car trouble, I would either, I mean, if I had a flat, the car's going on a rim. And then if it won't go on the rim anymore, I'd probably just sit there. I don't think I could get out and walk in the dark. Even the daytime would be hard. But the dark, I don't know if I don't think I couldn't do it. I mean, and I go everywhere, with protection. But I'm sorry, there's just, I don't know what I would do. But yeah, that is a worry. Especially when I have my little grandson, taking him back and forth, Thank God that's through the day. But and as far as like guests and stuff, yeah, I get kind of worried at times when we have company out here. There was one night we had, several of Paul's family was out here, and there was a knock that come from the woods to my right, and my sister-in-law was sitting right across from me, and I said, "You hear that?" And she said, "Yeah." She said, "What was that?" I said, "That was a knock." Well, she got up and moved. And then and nobody else heard it except for me and her. But then it wasn't but a few minutes later, to the other side of us was a louder knock. Everybody heard that, and they started, whooping and stuff. And then, Paul had to tell them, no, we don't do that here. And you hate to have to tell people this. And, the thing is they should have known because they see how it has affected me. But, they was just being goofy. And, we had some friends out back in the summer, and one of them, when she was a little girl, she was like 9. She had a Bigfoot encounter, and but she's not that afraid of them. And she kept wanting to go across the creek over there and go out into the dark. And I'm like, no, I said, but I felt like I had to be there with them because I didn't want them out there by themselves. And she was kept saying, well, let's go out there. I said, no, I had to make them stay where it was well lit. The guys were in the yard sitting out there around the fire talking. But it's just, that's how it is. You feel protective. My niece and her husband came out. What was they doing? I don't even remember what they was doing. Oh, they was going to let their dog, they were trying to train a coon dog. And they come out and, they're adults. I was still worried, but they brought their little boy. And I was just, oh, Lord, I sat in here the whole time and just prayed. That's all I could do was pray. And which they had to cut their trip short because in Arkansas, I don't know if y'all know what these are, but we have what's called seed ticks. And when I say seed ticks, they are like hundreds of tiny, tiny ticks. You brush up against the wrong leaf, you get these ticks on you, they're all over you. And their little boy got into them, so they had to cut that short. But I was terrified, the whole time. All I could do is sit here and pray. I was glad they went home. They wasn't here probably 20 minutes. So.
Well, you have to modify your life around, what you live. It's not like you can get in your car and you can leave.
Mm-hmm.
Are there certain people that come to your property that you just pay the price for it when they leave?
So far, we haven't had that. Now, we have had more like activity at times kind of ramps up whenever we have company here. We've had the house slapped when our daughter was here. You know, and when I say hit, our house probably
22 foot of it is underground.
underground. The front parts, you know, sticks out. So when something hits this house, they're hitting metal and concrete. And so when you hear this house get hit, and you can hear it as loud as we've heard it, it's getting hit.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen like dents in the concrete or anything like that, or in the metal, but you know, we all heard it. You know, that one night it hit the back of the house, and we all heard it. So I turned the camera more to that angle. Well, then it wasn't 5 minutes later, it hit the other direction where the camera wasn't pointing. So I mean, they're smart, very smart. And his sister comes and stays with me whenever Paul goes bear hunting, and things really ramp up then whenever.
I think he got hit when she was here too.
Yeah. Oh, we had whistling. We had all kinds of stuff going on when she was here. They know. And I mean, I've been here through the day and hear something hit the top of the house, and we don't have trees hanging over the house. You know, but.
So when you're in your bed and you're trying to sleep, that's constantly over your head. Do you want to go lead off on that, Greg?
Yeah. Well, it's been like this. I mean, since I messed my leg up, that's the reason I've been staying over here so much. Just because I got an oversized recliner, and you know, I had to have ankle replacement, and I can't sleep in bed. It just, I don't know why, even with my ankle, and I'd actually broke my leg in 7 places. But I just can't sleep in the bed, and I've got an extra large recliner, so I come over here and stay. I may go home in the evening, stay a few hours. They get ready to go to bed. I come over here and stay and just spend the night, which that also gives me a better chance of experiencing this stuff and dealing with it. But when I'm laying in this recliner and you go to sleep, and these things hit the wall, they hit my propane tank. It wasn't as bad as now. You know, this year I've had them messing with my door. I've had them messing with the door, pulling on my door. That's a little unnerving. But I'll promise you, if I'm laying there asleep, all I've got, I don't even have to open my eyes. All I got to do is extend my hand and let it fall, and it's gonna land on a tactical Smith & Wesson revolver, a 357 Magnum, and it stays by my side. All I got, I can grab it just as. Might as well have a spotlight on it. It stays right beside me, and if I can make it about 10 feet, that's not just for that. That's to get me to the tactical 12 gauge. There's 2 of them right here on a shelf that all I got to do is rack the slide, and it's slugs in it. Spencer came over here, and I'll just tell this on Spencer. First time Spencer came here, he came over, and I told him, I said, look, man, if you want to bunk in the back bedroom, that's great. And what I got in there, it's a smaller bedroom, and there's military bunk beds. They come out of a military bunk room. And he went in there, he came back, he's like, hey, did you know there's like a assault rifle in there by the bed? I'm like, yeah.
Exactly.
I'm like, yep, that's K-47. It stood up right by the bedpost, right? Yeah. I just didn't know if he was in there or knew it was in there. Like, yeah, that's where it stays. You got an AK in the bedroom? I said, yeah, there's one in all 3 bedrooms. Man, I'm like, yeah, there's all 3 bedrooms here has got an AK-47 with a 30-round mag stood up by the bedpost. Look, I hope I don't never need them. But a whole lot rather than be there if I did need them than be where else if I needed them. And, you know, look, I'm not advocate for shooting one of these things. I'll never shoot one unless it's a last resort. Mm-hmm. Because I think when you do shoot one, that's when it's going to go really, really, really bad.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's when it goes really, really bad. Mm-hmm. And look, y'all, I've had to point a gun at these things to stop them. I've had them bluff charge me multiple times when they were tearing the woods apart coming at me. And when they stopped was the exact moment that I leveled down a Browning semi-automatic 30-06 at them, and they slammed on brakes. I don't know what they was wanting, but it wasn't good. Mm-hmm. And I know they knew what that rifle was, because the very instant that I leveled it down, they stopped. Every time they stopped. Now they weren't happy about it, and I had to plot my way to get on out of where I was to get back to a vehicle to leave. And then, I've talked about, people that's heard me talk before, we accidentally made peace with them. And that's a whole different can of worms.
Yep.
But I haven't been bluff charged since that day, or since that evening. It was right just after dark. And I accidentally made peace with them. And I think that for me, it's like they figured out that I absolutely knew what they were, and they weren't fooling me anymore, because it was the knocks, the whoops, the whistles, the grunts, the growls, the huffs, them bluff charging, but they wouldn't expose themselves. They would not get out where I could see them. And once I whooped back at them, I whooped back at one that was huffing and growling and breaking limbs, and he was growling at me, Alan, and Alan's friend. And we were within less than 40 feet, probably closer to 35 feet from this thing. And I whooped back at it, and the dadgum thing, it's over there, and it's just, and it's breaking limbs. And I just raised my head. That's what I told Alan. I said, dude, just be ready. He said, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to try something. I don't know if it's going to work. I raised my head back, and I did a whoop, W-H-O-O-P, as long and loud as I could, because I'd heard them do that hundreds of times. And as soon as I did that, it was like you hit the off button or the mute button. When I did that, that thing went from raising all this hell over here. It just stopped, just blip. And it was like 3, 2, 1. And you just hear it like it was disgusted, just like, it was a lot louder and a whole lot longer than that. But it was just like you gave somebody some horrible news, and they're really trying hard to do something. They're just like, huh. And that's what it was. It was disgusting. Just, huh. And then it's like we hear it turn around, and it starts walking through that thicket, going away from us, breaking limbs. And it walked way out there in the thicket, stopped again. Huh. And took off walking and went out of here. And, we're standing there listening. Everybody, we're in the dark looking, a little bit of moonlight. And it goes on. We can't hear it no more. And we're kind of whispering, but we're trying to listen. And then we're looking at each other like, how did that work? That just stopped it. It stopped right then. It quit. And from that day forth, they quit bluff charging. They quit. They got to where they wouldn't throw stuff at me anymore. But it was like absolutely, and I did it by accident. I didn't know that was going to do it. But it was like, well, the gig's up. We ain't going to run him off anymore. And I can't explain that. I know that don't even make sense, but that's what happened.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Did that answer Sean's question? He said accidentally make peace.
Maybe that answered it. But seriously, I done it by just sheer accident. But it changed the temperament to all of them that I've been dealing with. Mm-hmm. And that happened where I was hunting, and Crowfly from right here where I'm at is less than a half a mile. That's where that happened. And I think that I went through all that before I ever built this cabin. But I think that they recognized me, my vehicle, the people that was with me, from going in and hunting where they were. And, I'm so close to where I'm at here that I think these things were just coming around. Probably they weren't coming looking for me. I think they were just passing through at night and probably scavenging something to eat, or just coming around seeing what was going on. And then they noticed, well, there's that same truck, or there's that Jeep that's coming over to our place. Hey, there's that guy going in and out. He's the one that's over hunting. And then, once I ain't gonna say they like me. I'll just say that maybe I feel accepted, that they got a level of trust. Hey, we've done all this horrible stuff trying to run the guy off. And yeah, he's had a weapon, but he hadn't tried to hurt us. He didn't shoot at us. He pointed it at us, but he didn't ever shoot. And we've done this over and over and over. Maybe if we quit trying to bully him, he's all right. And look, y'all, this ain't been, I hear people talk about, well, I had This happened in 2020 or 2017 or 20. I've been dealing with these things since 2000. So I'm 25 years deep into this. And, it's a long time for them to get, I ain't going to say to really know me, but to recognize me as part of their environment that they've dealt with over and over. And it had never come to, me shooting at them, me trying to harm them or anything like that. And, I use the analogy of, let's say you buy a new house and you're in town. You move over there and the neighbors are 75, 80 feet on each side. Well, the neighbor's got a fenced in yard and he's got a Rottweiler. Well, you're new in his environment. He may not can get to you, but he don't recognize you. He don't trust you. He wants you to leave. That's ingrained in him. This is my territory. You're too close. Bark, 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 leave. He's chomping at the running back and forth. Well, guess what? After he sees you day in, day out, eventually he's going to realize, well, that dude may not come over here and give me a hot dog through the fence. He's not going to come pat on my head, but I really don't have to bark at him anymore because I see him all the time. He ain't hurt nothing. You're more accepted. You may not be their buddy and their friend, but they accept you that you're kind of normal for that area. And I think that's what it comes into is like me here, like Flatrock or Pam and Paul or Don. They've grown to figure out that we're there and we're not hurting them. We're not trying to do anything to them. And they've kind of accepted us being in that area. And then when you bring new people in, they're like, oh, red alert again. There's somebody different. And it just re-triggers all that. Even though they may be with us and they're going, well, that dude's all right, but I don't know about this other guy. And that would be the same exact thing if that Rottweiler I was talking about. Same thing.
Flatrock, do you have anything that you want to add? Do you have boundaries that have been set or kind of unspoken or lines that you kind of set out for them that they seem to understand?
Well, I've only been dealing with them since 2019, so I feel for Greg, but I believe that these creatures have calmed down at my house. I believe they tried to run us out when we first moved there. When say they can when you bring people over, I understand the adrenaline rush. People want to have that encounter. I understand that totally. And if we was going 10 miles down the road, even 5 miles down the road into the woods, I'd be all for it. But when these creatures are right there, and they're actually coming up on your porch, that's where people don't understand, how bad it can get, when it's right there at your front door compared to 5 miles down the road just to go in the woods and have an encounter.
Right.
There is a huge difference. And that's the point I guess we're all trying to make. It just changes you to to respect these creatures because that's what you want to do. Don't be afraid of them, just respect them. And hopefully, like Greg says, they'll back off. They know who you are and just live with it. If you can. If you can.
Don?
Yeah. So I was here 15 years before I had my sighting. For those 15 years, I did a lot of shooting up in the backwoods. After my sighting, and for a few weeks, maybe about a month, anytime I'd go outside at night, they would bluff charge me. But I always felt like they were testing me to see if I was going to take a gun out. And I never took a gun out. And ever since that sighting, I don't allow anyone to take a gun up. Only I carry a gun, but I hide it. I never let them see a gun up there. And like you said, I tell everyone they tolerate me now. They don't do any of that anymore, but they will give me their location by whooping or really low moans. And yeah, like you said, when I bring somebody new over, they're right down. I had my nephew here right before Christmas, and they were outside doing their owl hoots. And I think they were doing that to see if he was going to come outside. And they seem to test everyone new that comes here. But yeah, they tolerate me now, and I think they know I'm not going to bring anybody up there that's going to be a threat to them. But yeah, it's funny how he pointed the gun and got their respect, or and I took my guns away, and they calmed down quite a bit after that. But they're always there.
Yeah, it didn't really calm them down. It just made them stop. It made them stop advancing. Now they stayed belligerent and irate, but like I said, it took me a long time, several encounters that were not good at all. And I mean, I wasn't in there hunting them. I wasn't looking for them. I was in there deer hunting, and they didn't like me being in their area. And and they were sneaky about it. They would be sneaky because I've had them trick me into thinking they would come in and figure out that I was there, and they would make it known that they were leaving. You would hear them walk off, and I would think, well, they're gone. And when you'd climb down and hit the ground, here they would come running back. It's like they would like, well, we'll trick him. We'll make him think we left, and when he comes down, we're gonna nab him. And dude, you talking about freak you out when you hit the ground and here they come? Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's like as I crunch the leaves, here they come running to me. And it sounded like somebody had knocked a car in neutral and rolled it off the hill through the timber. It limbs breaking and footsteps hitting the ground, and they would bluff charge and come up and throw a fit. I mean, have a fit, temper tantrum. Have you ever had them like really throw a temper tantrum and psych themselves up and just get madder and madder and madder at you?
No, only for those few weeks after I saw him. And I was on my porch when I saw him, so I didn't really have a bad experience. I was right at my house. But when he took off, we stared at each other for probably 5 to 10 seconds. And then he started squinting his eyes at me. So I looked down for a second. And when I looked back up, he was gone. And he took off, and I ran out to where he was to just see if he left any tracks or anything. And he was gone. But for the next 3 weeks, I mean, that's when they surrounded my house in bones. They put probably about 6 or 7 bones around my house on top of rocks and stumps. And I took that as a warning, to stay out of the woods, but I kept going back into the woods because that was my property. I wasn't going to not use my property.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they learned after a while that I wasn't a threat to them. And especially now that I don't even look for footprints, I just go back to my regular activity, which in hindsight, now they come in closer. They try to sneak up on me. I've seen the red eyes like down low to the ground 30 feet from me. Last summer or the summer before, I had a juvenile on all fours sneaking up to me, and I saw his eyes on top of a rock. He was behind the rock just looking at me. And when I saw him, he took off on all fours up the hill, and I got up to go up the hill, and the adults were right to my left, and they started going off with vocals. So I just go, all right. And I turn around and I go back. But I don't like go after them. I never bring a gun out. So I don't know. It's weird what's going on now. They do some weird stuff to me now. They've hit me with a vocalization on the side of my head one day, and that really knocked me sideways, and it damaged my left eye a little. I still have problems with it. But one day, looking down my driveway at night as the cars were going by, I just happened to glance down the driveway, and I saw a branch across the street spinning in circles. I said, what the heck is that? So I walked out to the road, and there was one laying there looking at me. I had a headlamp on, and I could see these green eyes, big green eyes looking right at me. And then when I got back to my house, they were screaming at me. So I don't understand a lot of the stuff they do yet, but not that I ever will. But yeah, they're highly intelligent, and like you said about if I saw one, if I walked up to one, do I think they'd hurt you? They always run away around here. I think the surprise of a surprise attack is what they prefer if they were going to hurt me.
Well, Ken, go ahead, Vicky.
No, go ahead. Mike.
I was just going to ask Ken. Ken, do those down there at your place, when they get all mad, do they do that temper tantrum deal like they do up here?
Oh yeah. I mean, I put out a recording with one that beating on the house, yelling outside my house. I mean, that thing was throwing a temper tantrum. When on that July 4th night, even though we didn't know they were Bigfoots, when Bob shot that gun off, when we was telling this what we thought was a person to get back out to the road, don't come back to this yard. That night, after everybody went to their houses, I mean, I guess it somewhere between 10 and 12. I couldn't tell you, but they started raising a fit out there, ripping stuff up, yelling, screaming, just all kinds of racket. But whoever it was, never come around that trailer. But they were throwing a temper tantrum back there. It scared every one of us. We didn't know what they were. I never believed in these creatures. Never thought I'd ever see one, hear one, be around one, anything. I mean, I love the woods as much as everybody else, but, those days are over for right now until I feel more comfortable getting out there. Because you just don't know when these creatures are going to throw a tantrum. Now, like the one you went through with the motorcycle, I haven't heard that kind of tantrum yet. But I'm sure that's going to come one day if something just happened to trigger them like that, or a certain group comes in and starts, showing its tail. You just never know because it's always unexpected. Always unexpected.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I was going to say, I've never heard of a tantrum up here. A lot of people around this town now are realizing, and what they're doing now is talking about it. No one would ever talk about it over the past, I don't know how many years. I talked to a 72-year-old that had a sighting when he was 14. He never talked about it. But I went to a town meeting one day with my foot casts, and I brought him in and started showing everyone. And ever since then, people are talking now. People are talking about it, and they go to the town hall. If they have a sighting or a problem, they go to the town hall and they send them right to me. And the big thing I tell people to do is just put more lights up in your yard. Light up your yard. You won't have them coming in.
Won't work. We did that. Won't work.
Oh,
we put floodlights up, not just lights. We put floodlights up. They still come up. Wow. When they get ready, when they get hungry and they want to get that feed, they're coming, no matter if there's lights or not.
Oh, okay. So you have food there for them. Okay.
Well, we did. We was feeding our dogs and cats, and that's what they was coming up and stealing.
Yeah.
We didn't know about Bigfoots back then. Never believed they were real. But yet, the cat food and dog food just kept going missing. And then finally we realized once we seen it, that's what was coming up on the porch and stealing the food. And so that's when we started putting out the floodlights, and it didn't stop them. We put out trail cams. it didn't stop them. So lights, I'm sorry, lights didn't work around our house. So,
No.
it's got to where I don't film no more, period. I got a good listening device that can listen all the way around our property. So if they come in, we're going to hear them coming in, and that's the way we leave it. We don't mess with them anymore. We just leave them alone. Just leave them alone.
Yeah.
PJ,
Yeah, I've got.
Paul,
Oh, go ahead.
PJ and Paul, did you guys ever have them throw a temper tantrum on your property?
No, I don't believe so.
Now, the only thing that, I mean, after we first got the house built, we had no phone service out here. You would have to go outside to like send a text because you could only get one bar outside. And I would go outside and I would hear a tree behind the house get pushed over, bushes. Our son, he had moved back in for a little while, and he would go outside and he would call me out several times. Mom, what is this? I mean, bushes would be, being broke. I never heard vocals with it, but like it sounded like a tree was just being, pulled back and forth, But as far as like the vocals and stuff like that with it, no, just mostly the bushes and stuff and the trees going over. So
Is it a good time to put the question in?
Hold on, Miss Vicky. How many in this group has been, what I call triangles, where they're on both left and right side of you, and then that one comes up the middle? I knew you, Greg.
Me?
But that one and Miss Beth. I mean,
That's
that
tactical move.
that triangle pattern, it's like it's a big thing to them.
Mm-hmm.
That triangle pattern. They leave you that one way out, straight back.
Wow.
When those three used to crash through the woods at night, they were in like a triangle.
Mm-hmm.
3 different sides they'd come in. And when I go out at night and cough, just to let them know I'm outside, they're always in that triangle. Each one of them will whoop to let me know where they are. And the only other time I could say that one got angry was the big male. When I have a second group here now, there was another group here of 3. Now there's a different group of 3 here. But the original 3 that were here, me and the juvenile used to go back and forth making sounds with each other. We'd bark like dogs, and it would bark, I'd bark, it would bark, or I'd whistle, it would whistle. And the big male would come running down the hill, crashing down, and he would bark or vocalize right at me. And I do the same thing I always do. All right, I'll stop, and I'd stop. But other than that, I haven't had much for like, crazy behavior from them. They're very quiet around here otherwise.
Yeah. Don, let me ask you a question. Have you ever had them run up to you or run close enough by you that you felt the ground shake when they ran up?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they do that at night a lot. In the woods, not so much during the day. I've walked up to them during the day, or one day I fell asleep up on the hill. And when I woke up, I usually follow a path straight down. But this day I walked over to a stone wall, and one stood up and just walked away. It was close to me. It was watching me sleep up there. I probably slept for about an hour, and they just watched me. But years ago up in Vermont, we had one run by us. I think it jumped from a tree because we got a big shake in the ground, and then it ran right by us. And then my roommate, he stepped out of the house one night. He went to go relieve himself. He went one way when he came out of the house. When he turned around to come back, one just stood up in the woods and started not walking directly towards him, but towards him at an angle. And I mean, it left a bone and a ball of raspberry leaves on a rock. I found them the next morning. That was the other group that was here. They had totally different behavior than the group that's here now.
Okay,
Yeah.
I have a question for the panel. How long did it take you to not be surprised when you hear one or you get some kind of interaction? Y'all dealing with them constantly. Does it desensitize you somewhat?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. It does.
Yeah. Like I said, I kind of lost my fear of them. I mean, I still have a rational fear of them, but it doesn't bother me to go up in the woods if they're up there anymore. In the beginning, it did. It used to freak me out, you know. But I think they realize I'm not going to bother them. So they just watch me and let me know that they're there. That's the scary part, that you know that they're there,
Mhm.
you know.
I still don't have any trust for them. I'm not.
So,
Let's put it like this. I dealt with the severe fear of them for a long
mm,
time, because once I figured out that that's what it was and that's what I was dealing with, I didn't know how much worse it was going to get, because I was having to go through all the traumatic stuff with them. But then after, like I said, I accidentally, like, we made peace with them, and the more stuff I've had, they're not doing the belligerent things anymore. But I don't know what it would take to flip the switch in the other way, because I accidentally made peace. I'm afraid I'll do something that will accidentally make war again. So that I don't have trust for them. But as of right now, they haven't done anything in a long time to really scare me to death. And I'll tell you what kept me going back to the woods, knowing what was there, because there was times I was like, I'm done. I'm not going back. I'd have to be absolutely insane to go back in the woods and deal with what I'm dealing with, because this is getting worse. But there would be times that it may be a few days, it may be a week, it may be a couple of weeks, and I wouldn't go back because I was absolutely terrified of what was going to happen. And the more I would think about it, the madder I would get, and I would take that fear and repurpose it in anger, and I'd go back. And that's what kept me going, was just absolute. I was pissed off, and I would go back in the woods, and I was like, well, all right, if we're gonna throw down, I'm ready. And I would go for a while, and it wouldn't be nothing bad, and then it's kind of like you put your guard down a little bit, and then here it goes again. But it took me a long time to get to where I wasn't just horribly surprised that something happened. And it depends on where you're at. Now, like if I'm here, I mean, I've been sitting here watching TV or looking at something on my phone. Them things scream. I could hear them over the TV. Hear them playing. It may be 2 a.m. They sound like they're a couple of 100 yards, but you could hear it in here playing. And that's what it kind of cracks me up, is because, and I'm not making light of people getting a recording, but people will get a recording and people will be just astonished, like, oh my God, that don't, we've run it through all these analyzers, and that's something that there's no known animal, and everybody's tore up about it. And I'm like, y'all around here, we call that a Wednesday. If you're
right.
you're desensitized, because it's like,
Mhm.
I've heard more stuff in a week than the researchers have been doing it for 50 years is heard all rolled up together.
Right.
Mhm.
And you can't explain that to people. And I've got it that people want to look at people like me and Don and Flatrock and Pam and Paul and say, well, I mean, they're having that much encounter, and oh my God, why hadn't they got this, and why hadn't they got that? And I was on the phone with Roger Williams today, and I told Roger, I said, brother, I don't try to record, I don't video. I'm not trying to prove this to anybody. The only reason I'm willing to talk and do these podcasts is because I know that there's other people out there that's dealing with the same thing that we are. We're not the only people in the US or even in the world that's dealing with this. But there's people out there that, if you don't have somebody to talk to, you're talking about a low place to be.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having to try to deal with this on my own and not realize that somebody else is going through the same thing. At least that's a little comforting to know
Mhm.
that there are other people that's dealing with this, and that they're still struggling to go on through everyday life and be as normal as they can. And it's day by day. I mean, I guarantee you, everybody on this panel will tell you it's day by day. What happened yesterday may happen tomorrow, and it may be totally different.
Mhm.
I actually have a question from the panel, and I'd like for everyone to answer this. Greg, what was your scariest moment with the cryptids? But I kind of want to go
I,
around the panel.
I will definitely answer that for Miss Sharon.
Love
Sharon
you,
probably not. I mean, everybody thinks it would be, when I saw one, or I was looking eye to eye at it. No, my scariest encounter was when me and Alan were hunting, and everybody's heard, or a lot of these people have heard me talk about the motorcycle incident when the one was mad about the motorcycle up on the roadway close to a mile away from us revving up. And that thing absolutely was having a temper tantrum and was irate and destroying everything around it in the woods. And that thing was within 100 feet of me, 100 feet. And it was absolutely destroying the woods. It was breaking limbs, sound like they were big as a small coffee can. And I watched it jerk a dogwood tree, you know, way bigger than a paint can at the trunk. This tree was probably 30 feet tall. And that tree, I would watch it go back and forth and this way, back, and then it would go round and around and it would jerk. I was waiting on the roots to give up and the whole tree crash. But that thing was thrashing that tree. It would be like me grabbing a sapling that big around and both hands and just flopping it. And that thing would do a bellow, roar, scream, howl that I cannot explain, other than it was like a bull, like a cow, a bull bellowing, then into a roar like a lion, then a man screaming, and then a woman screaming into a coyote howl. And I tell people at the end, it would be so abrupt and sharp that it was like a whip crack. And it was like this thing had to have lungs big as my whole torso, because it just kept going and going and going and going and going. And me 100 feet away, the volume would be like you standing at the front of a freight train, reaching out, putting your finger and touching the plow on the front of the train, and the engineer pulling the horn. I mean, it was like when this thing would do that bellow, roar, scream, howl. It was like, it should have been like a cartoon. You should have been able to see my clothing like flop in the volume of the wind out of this thing. I mean, it absolutely, and that's what I tell people. And I wouldn't even tell people this for a long. But is that roar, the whole, we'll just call it a roar. When it started down real low and kept ramping up, ramping up, ramping up, there was a part in there to where when it would hit that my vision would get blurry. It was like it was vibrating my eyeballs, and it would blur my vision. And as it kept going, my vision would clear back up. It didn't do it the whole time. It was like it was hitting a certain tone. It was affecting my vision. And I mean, it was so loud. I mean, I'm holding a 30-06 rifle, hiding behind a pine tree, and I'm peeping around, and I'm wanting to hold. I mean, I'm wanting to nearly drop the rifle. If it hadn't been for just desperation and fear, the most comfortable thing I could have done would have been drop the rifle and clamp my hands on my ears. It's hurting, absolutely hurting my ears. And it's so loud, and this certain pitch would blur my vision. That's the volume that I heard coming out of this thing, and me a mile from the road, off in these woods, in the middle of nowhere. And that's what I'm being subjected to. It would have been, in my mind, it would have been more feasible for somebody to have plucked a freight train and parked it in the woods, and the guy been laying on the horn saying, "How did I get here?" I mean, that's what I'm subjected to. That there should not be any way that any just a flesh and blood creature can make a sound that loud. It's absolutely mind-boggling on what I heard. The great thing for me, I wasn't there by myself. My buddy Alan was 200 yards through the thicket. It's here, I'm here, and Alan's behind me. So I'm between Alan and this thing. Alan's hearing what I'm hearing, except that, you know, I'm 100 feet. He's 200 yards further than I am. So he's 200 yards plus 100 feet. And Alan will tell anybody that when that thing did that roar, it was so loud on him at 200 yards, he was wanting to hold his ears. That's what I've heard. And I've tried to tell people, I've heard of the other creepiest thing, and I'll throw this in and I'm going to let somebody else tell their stuff, was when I heard the two talking back and forth. That was a whole level of creepy that still sets really hard on me, because I heard two creatures that were intelligent, and I heard a language that's very, very hard for me to explain. But 100%, I heard two different voices. They were both deep, but they were different. And it's like they were arguing back and forth, and it was loud. That was also within about 90 to 100 feet. But now that's creeped me out more than any.
Flatrock,
Well,
you look too comfortable there, buddy.
My scariest moment was that July 4th night, even though we didn't know it was them. Okay? But when reality actually hit, was to watch that big brown one come out of them woods, stand behind that tree. I'm looking at his back, and that sucker's looking right at my mom in the backyard. That's when reality set, and that was scary, because that's my mom, and you know, moms mean a lot, but that's when reality hit, and but them are the main two. The other one is right when I seen my first one. All I could do is just drop my head and say, "Oh shit," you know, because that was something I'd never thought I'd ever see. Never. And the size of that thing, I'd never forget. I could die tomorrow, and I'd probably still remember how big that thing was. I kid you not. I mean, that was huge. It was. You really can't even wrap your mind around the size of it. I mean, we're talking 10 foot, 4 foot wide, maybe 5 foot wide, 4 foot thick. I mean, that was huge. And the head of that thing, just huge. But that's mine.
Oh, wow. But
But,
you know,
but it's the
Flatrock,
reality. It's the reality, though, when that one that was following my mom. That's when reality hit. The scaredness went away, but reality hit. You know, you're in you're in something you ain't ready for. You know, and that's the reality. That's the reality of living with these creatures.
and I remember the audio of the dog getting smacked against
The tree.
that,
Yeah.
and that was real. That was as
Yeah, that's
real as
real.
it gets.
Yeah.
And that was terrible.
Yeah.
Don, I'll go to you. Then Pam, I got a 2-part question for you. So Don.
The scariest. The only time I really felt the fear is when I went to investigate a sighting that wasn't at my house. It was a few miles from here when I walked out into the woods in the middle of winter to a cemetery. And after being in the cemetery for a couple hours, I found tracks, and one had come up out of the snow, but it had thrown snow everywhere, and I couldn't quite really make out what ran into the woods. After checking everything out for a couple hours, I found tracks. I found where he had buried himself. I saw the legs, where the legs were under the snow. But anyway, when I was leaving the cemetery, it started whistling at me. And I turned around and I saw him peeking out from a tree. And that was like the really my first good sighting of one. But I'm still way out in the woods. This thing could have got me at any, before I left the woods. And that's the only time I really felt the fear. The sightings I had at my house, like I said, I was on my porch, and maybe it was the safety of my house right behind me, but I really didn't have a fear then. I had the realization that, oh no, they're right here. I got them right here too. And that was more of a life-changing moment than a fear. Because I've been doing this since I was 13. I've been going out looking for these things. A friend of mine's brother had a sighting when I was in the 7th grade in an area in the Hockomock Swamp down in Mass, where I spent a lot of time in the Hockomock. And I used to go out looking for him. Me and my buddy who still comes up here, we would go out looking for him. And even he doesn't quite have a fear of them. He comes up here and he'll go up into the woods in the middle of the night. It's probably not a healthy choice, but I don't know. I think not showing, like most wild animals, not showing fear gives a different response, from the animal. But that was the only time in that cemetery where I really felt the fear. What I'm noticing too, and with all the encounters I've taken down in your area down there, they seem a little more aggressive down that way. In northern Maine, they're aggressive, but where I am here, they like to remain quiet because they live amongst people around here in neighborhoods and close to people. So I think they have to stay quiet and very non-aggressive. They use their vocals to scare people, or the ground pounding like I was talking about. But you don't hear about trees being shaken or stuff being thrown at people around here. Even animals, pets don't go missing. Chickens are the only things that go missing up around here. I mean, pets go missing, but it's mostly cats, and we've got plenty of coyotes and stuff. But that was the only time I've really felt that the fear hit me,
PJ, two-part question. But first of all, John Muncie wanted you to know that he enjoyed your channel. He's right there in your neck of the woods trying to learn about the subject. He gave a compliment to your channel. So two-part question to PJ and Paul, what Paul wants to put in. Your scariest moment, but Blue-Eyed North, Miss Pat wants to know what advice you would give Flatrock. So let's start with your scariest, or Flatrock's wife, I'm sorry. So let's start with your scariest account, and if Paul has one, I know Paul just goes out there and tells them to shut up like a cowboy, buddy. But I think what he was looking for is, since Flatrock's wife has returned, what advice would you give her to deal with it?
Well, I mean, of course, mine is the scariest was when I was in my swimming pool and looked up and, there was one standing there. That is by far the scariest. I'm only 5'1", and my swimming pool comes up to my neck. So, I mean, I felt trapped, that's about, and to look up and see something like Flatrock was saying, their size, seeing it standing there, I knew I had to get out of that pool, but it can't help but cross your mind, because I know I was thinking, am I going to die? But that's probably by far the scariest. I've had other things happen was scary, but that's the scariest. And then as far as Flatrock's wife, for me, I do a lot of praying, but I've actually went outside and told them, look, I want y'all to leave me alone. And, I don't mean them any harm. If they don't, as long as they don't bother me or my family or my animals, I don't want problems with them. And then I rebuke anything evil or demonic in the name of Jesus Christ. That's how I deal with it. But I have learned that for me, I had to face my fear. I had to make myself get back out there in that swimming pool without Paul here. That was hard. And there's still some things that I'm just careful. I'm more careful, on guard all the time. Every time I'm outside, I am completely on guard. Now, when I'm with Paul, I can calm down a little bit, but I feel safer, I guess you could say. But that just, being on guard, don't let your guard down.
Exactly.
You cannot trust something that you don't even know what it is, and you can't trust, and I know people have good experiences with them, and I'm not trying to take away from what they feel with these beings. But all I can say is you don't know what they are, you don't know what their intentions are, and you don't know, like Greg said, at the flip of a switch, what's going to cause that.
That's right.
And it's just like with people, animals, you can have the best person in the world get angry at you. You can have a loyal dog that's never growled at anybody turn around and bite you. I mean,
right.
That's just the way it is. And people just need to realize that we don't know what we're dealing with. And just, that's my advice. I'm sorry, it was kind of long, but that's why I like to speak out about this, because there's people that I care about that think that these things won't hurt you or wouldn't hurt you. But I'm here to tell you, I believe that they will, and they can.
I agree.
Well, that you brought up something really interesting, and it seems to be taboo. And I do want to talk about it, and I do think that you should not apologize when you talk about it. But for those of us that have our faith, and that in those times when, and I'm not just talking, I mean, I'm talking from a law enforcement standpoint, where I've called upon the name of God, and I have prayed, and I've given it to God. That seems to be frowned upon in the Bigfoot world. But why do we apologize, even if you're not Christian? Whoever is, I'm not. This is a debate about faith. It's whatever your faith or your beliefs or your culture is. That's fine. But why do we apologize for praying in the name of Jesus and it fixed the problem, and people turn around and call you quacks? What is your he's got his cross out. What is your reply to that? Because we should not apologize. We don't owe anyone in this community apologize for faith, and regardless of what it is. Who won't? All right, Greg, you got that. Go ahead, buddy.
Well, I think that people, I don't know why they don't want to mix it up, but that right there, that piece of solid silver stays on my neck. That thing's been off my neck one time in 12 years. I bought that the day that my baby girl was born, and that solid sterling silver cross hangs right here. It's
Yeah,
hung
I've
there
got mine.
April the 11th, 12 years ago, it'll be 13 years ago this year. The only time it's been off my head is they absolutely would not let me wear it when I went into surgery, and back last March when I had my ankle replaced. That's the only time that's been off my head in almost 13 years. I've experienced a miracle. The Lord gave me a miracle. I know the Lord's real. I don't just tell people I'm a believer. I know the Lord's real. Every time my foot hits the floor, I had a miraculous healing where the bones twisted and turned and went back together in my foot. A surgeon of 30 plus years tell me that can't happen, but it did. I mean, they were planning on right where just under my kneecap. I broke it there in 7 places. It freaked out at least 30 medical personnel to hospital. Never seen anything happen like that. That part they didn't even operate on. They thought they were going to take my leg off then. So look, I mean, I've done been through it. What Flatrock was talking about a while ago, the triangle, the 3 of them. There was 3 of these things coming on me when I was deer hunting, and they were all 3 angry. They were growling and huffing and throwing stuff at the shooting house. And I came out. I made my way out of the shooting house, and I got out in the field. And I heard these things still growling and huffing, and I thought, well, hey, I'm done. There's 3 of them. They're all mad. They're all starting to do their little temper tantrums. It's like they were feeding off each other's anger. I backed out in the field. I mean, I could take a few steps right there and get the rifle and show it to you. But I had a semi-automatic Browning 30-06, and also had a 357 Magnum pistol under my shoulder. I backed out in the field probably less than 60 feet, and I froze. I couldn't move. It's like my feet were in concrete, and it was set up. I couldn't take a step. I thought, well, it's now or never. Now's the time. I'm fixing to have to try to kill these things, or I'm going to die, or we're all going to die together. I don't know what's going to happen. And I stood there, and it come over me. I spoke up, and I wasn't screaming. I wasn't whispering, just a stern voice. And I rebuked them things in the name of Jesus, in the name of the Lord. I commanded them to leave. I said, leave here and leave here now. I command you in the name of Jesus, in the name of the Lord, I command you to leave this place. And I told him, I said, I rebuke you in the name of the Lord. And look, I'm listening to one right straight in front of me, one off this way and one off this way. There's 3 of them. They were probably 20 yards apart, and they were less than probably 35 yards from me. And they're having a fit. There's, like I said, 3 of them, one 12 o'clock, one about 10 o'clock, one about 2 o'clock. And it's like each one off the other. When I started rebuking them things and spoke that, there again, it was just like you hit the off button, like a mute, blip, instant silence. I'm talking about silent. And in my head, like before they ever started doing anything, I already had the creepy feels, the gloom and doom, somebody staring at me. Then they started throwing stuff at the shooting house, and it just got worse and worse. It was like impending doom. I mean, it's like I'm not gonna live. It's like the whole world, anxiety, everything is crashing on me. And when I rebuked them things in the name of the Lord, it just it stopped right then. And instantly, it's like the sun got bright, the air cleared, they're gone. I never heard them leave. They never made another sound. I didn't hear anything. I can't explain that to anybody and make it make sense. All I can tell you, they never made not any of the 3. There was not another sound, not another peep from any of them. And in my heart, it's like they're gone. Not that they just got quiet, not that they've just stopped. It's like they are not there no more. They're I don't know where they went, but they're not there. I never heard a leaf. I never heard a leaf, never heard a twig, nothing that they were leaving. But in my heart, they are not there. To the point, I'm standing there holding a rifle, looking over top of it. It's like once I let it down a little bit, and that's when I rebuked them. And after just a few seconds, I flipped the safety back on, brought the rifle up, laid it over my shoulder. I turned my back to the woods and walked nearly 600 yards across that field in my truck. I was fine. I was absolutely. I went from I'm about to die to they're not gonna hurt me. I'm done. They're done. I'm done. I walked away from them. And right then was what really threw me into the infamous woo with these things, because I just witnessed. I mean, if that had been a grizzly bear or 3 grizzly bears, I don't know what effect it could have possibly had on them. I mean, the Lord may have stepped in. I don't know. But I can tell you, the power of the word had an effect on these things.
There's power in that name.
Amen on that. Not that it has to do with Sasquatch, but I'll put my 2 cents in there. Then I'll pass it to Flatrock. You know, when my patrol car was crashing and I knew I was going to die, I just let go. You ever heard that song, Jesus Take the Wheel? I let go and I says, I give it to you. And it was that 1 second I had the faith of a mustard seed. And you know, people can say what they want, but it was the power and the grace of God that, you know, brought me back. When I was laying in that field, I looked down and seen my own body. You know, I can't explain it, but that was the power of God. And if there's been times in my life where I have had my knees knocking, but just praying in the name of Jesus or just saying, help me, God, has just brought that calm through my body. And this isn't about, you know, me trying to push my beliefs or my faith down anyone's throat, because we all have different beliefs, and you don't have to be a Christian to be my friend. This is about how it applies to us and our experience, and we should not have to apologize for that. The same as if you were this, you know, if there was someone else on the panel that had a different belief or a different faith or culture or whatever, I would give them the same respect, because, you know, that's their place. But Flatrock, how does your faith or beliefs help you or have helped you in your situation?
All right. Starting from the beginning, from the beating on the houses to my brother's dog getting killed, to my wife leaving, to my mom not coming out, will not come outside during nighttime. All the yells, being screamed at, being growled at, them coming up on your porch, even leaving handprints right there beside your door. You know, and that reality hits, you better be believing, you know, because you in deep when all that kind of stuff happens to you at your house. And there's nobody in this world that, you know, me and my family, we pray to God every day. Every day. Mostly my mom, she's a big time God prayer. Me, I'm off and on. But belief is everything in our household. But you know, I mean, I wish this stuff would stop, but it's not. I mean, we can do what Greg said, yes, at that moment, but that's not going to stop them from coming back. And so, you know, you got to have that faith. If not, you know, I don't see how people are actually going to live through it if they don't, because it's hard. It's hard. It can be real hard, mostly when you got a lot of belligerent critters coming around and getting that close to your house. I mean, you know, if you're laying in bed, you're maybe you're a couple of cardboards between them. That's all that's between you and it is a couple of cardboards and a piece of aluminum metal. And so yeah, you better have faith. You better have it when you're dealing with these creatures right there at your house. You better have it.
Don?
I can't say that I've ever prayed while I was out there, but I have pulled my cross out and I've talked to them, not that I can think that they can understand, but I know that I'm drawing their attention to the cross. And I always say, do you know what this is? Is usually what I say to them. And I did it to those dogmen creatures too. Those are the ones I really remember pulling it out going, do you know what this is?
Mm.
You know, I can't say I've ever said anything else to them. I mean, I with my faith, I always, that's why I think I don't have a fear. I don't have a death wish or anything, but I'm not afraid of dying. You know,
Down, Paul.
No, I haven't really had a scary experience. I guess, some weird experiences, but nothing scary,
Well, for me, it's just that's who I am, you know. And I can't imagine my life without the Lord in it. And um, that's just who I am. That's the only way I know how to answer that. And I apply the Lord to everything that I do, or I try to. And when I'm scared, of course, when I'm happy, when you're sad, worried, and for me to try to deal with everything that has kind of happened with me out here. I mean, Paul hasn't really had a lot. I mean, he's seen some things, he's heard some things, but he hasn't had a full-blown encounter, but that's just that's one thing that I stand behind, is my faith in my Lord Jesus. And it says it's a name above all names, so I just stand with him.
Yeah, I pray for her daily here, while I'm gone, and my whole family or whoever's out here, that's every day. That's what I do. I pray for protection here.
Yeah. Well, and I pray for protection for him being out running around a bunch of people too. So, I mean, he's had bad things happen to him through his job.
Oh, yeah.
He had a guy pull a gun on him. So, that's why I say, because I have had people say, why don't you just sell out and move out? I can't believe you're living out there. I mean, you can, there's evil everywhere. And when I say evil, these things, I'm not 100% sure what they are. And I don't think nobody knows. I have my ideas, but I think, I've heard stories of them saving people's lives. Would something evil do that? I mean, I don't know. I don't think so, but it's just I just stand with Jesus. That's my, because you can run into evil anywhere. Or have something bad happen.
It's just reality.
Yep.
It's reality. And that's our life, reality, right in our faces.
Mm-hmm.
Greg's face, Miss Pam, Paul, Don, mine, my wife, my mom, my brothers. It's reality, and it hits us right in the face.
Yeah.
And it ain't like I said earlier. It's not like driving 5 or 10 miles down the road to go in the woods. It's at your front door.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what makes it, hard in a way. If that's the right word to describe it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more reality than would it be fear. And being scared. It's just reality. It's our reality, and we're all living it.
Well,
Right there in
and
the front doors.
it's hard to wrap your mind around something that is so huge, so massive, so fast,
And
and so
unknown.
strong. And I mean, it's mind blowing for people that have never seen one. You can't even describe it. Me and Greg was talking about this the other day. You cannot describe what you're seeing, especially when you see one of these things move. and the sheer size of them, and it's just trying to deal with wrapping your mind around all that, plus all the activity, plus trying to keep your guard up. It kind of takes a toll on you at times,
Pam, I told a guy the other day, I said, think of it like this. I said, if you walked out your house, you walk out of your house and you walk over there to your carport, you grab the walk-through doorknob, open it up, and you step out, you're looking down, and all of a sudden you look up, you bump into something and you look up, and there's an elephant. An African elephant standing on your concrete driveway, and you just bumped into it, and you look, and you've got this wall of gray flesh, and you look up, and there's an elephant. Now, we all agree that elephants are real.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what if it's something that you've just saw right there with your own eyes? You just witnessed it, you've heard it. Maybe you didn't touch it, but let's just say you walk and you look, and here it is.
Mm-hmm.
And you see this animal that's so big that it's like, oh my God. Well, you got to wrap your head around the whole deal of that's not supposed to be here. How did it get here? Why has nobody seen it? Oh my God, this thing's huge. All it do is take 1 foot and stomp me in the ground. Well, that's dealing with an elephant. That's something that all around the world, everybody agrees that's real. Here they are. But when you see one of these things, and I promise you, when you see one, that elephant being there at your garage is going to be way down here compared to seeing what we've seen.
Yeah.
It's absolutely astounding. And it's like when I first laid eyes on one, when I finally saw that first one, it was like, and for the younger folks, y'all don't have a clue what a Rolodex is. But us older folks, you know what a Rolodex is. It's kind of like, it's like I've got a Rolodex of pictures in my mind, and it's like somebody's whirling it, and it's like going, person, nope, gorilla, nope, orangutan, nope, deer, nope. It's like, blip, 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 blip. And it's nothing for it to stop on that I can match up to what I'm seeing. It's like all these pictures are just flipping through my brain, and I don't have one to match it up with. And it's mind-boggling. I guess for the younger people, when you see on the CSI stuff where they got somebody's their picture, and the computer's flashing all these pictures trying to match it up, and that thing's searching, and then finally it matches and it moves it over and it shows that's who this picture is. That's where I was at when I was looking at this thing when it stepped out. And then I see it, turn to go back, and then it spins and leaps and leaps. What does take the going 20-foot horizontal and 5-foot elevation from dead still? It launches and lands in the roadway. There's not a human alive could do that, much less if they were wearing a suit that made them over 8 foot tall and 4 feet wide.
Right.
But I saw this thing that was that huge do something that's impossible, or should be impossible to do. But I watched it do it. I watched it happen. And it's like my brain is trying to land on to identify, yep, that's this. Here it is. There it is. I know what that is. And, and the whole time it's like there's so much stuff. It's like your brain is stuck in hyper mode and everything's happening in slow motion. And that's what's so weird. It's like your brain is going 9,000 miles an hour, but the whole encounter is just dragging on.
Do you think all this fear would go away if we grew up looking at these creatures in books and, their existence would have been known?
I think it would have made a massive difference.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like if I were to see a tiger out in my yard, I'd be scared to death of it. Yeah, but I would know it's a tiger.
Right.
I would know what it does. How this whatever this is. I mean, can you get anybody to admit to it?
Yeah, that's the problem, right?
And Miss
Uh,
Vic, I gotta get going here. I just want to thank you for bringing me on with these great people and everybody in chat. I appreciate everything, but I gotta get going, Miss Vic.
Flatrock, thank you so much, brother. And I so enjoyed having you. Thank you.
Hey, thank
Man,
y'all. Y'all,
Have a good
y'all
night.
more. By listening to y'all, I learned so much more. I do, and I thank y'all.
you bring most of the table as we do, and we love you, man. I'll talk to you
Love you
soon.
too, brother.
Love you too, Flatrock.
Night.
Y'all have a good one. Good night.
Bye.
There was a question where Dog asked, "Do you think they showed themselves to you particularly for a reason
I
on
think
your property?"
distraction is what I think. I think something you better turn around behind you if you're seeing one in front of you. You know,
Yep.
and
I try to tell people just because I deal with these things all the time don't mean I see them all the time. I've seen 4 of them that I could say, there it is. It can't be nothing. Now I've seen glimpses. I've seen stuff go from tree to tree, see a piece of something. I've seen that a few other times. But as far as seeing them, 4 in 25 years that I saw really well. The last one I saw was standing in my yard. It was from where I'm sitting less than 50 feet. When I pulled up, it was standing in my yard, and I watched it run behind my cabin and at the woods. They don't like to be seen. A lot of
right.
times, if you're seeing them, it's an accident.
Yeah, if they show themselves, I mean, there could be a female with a juvenile having to move through the woods, and the male could just get up and distract you because it's very hard to take your eyes off of them, you know. But I've learned that whenever I see one, I always glance around behind me. Or if I hear one in front of me, I do the same.
John said he got a call on a monkey in the front porch one time, and it was a monkey.
Oh my!
We have quite a few law enforcement officers in chat. I imagine a lot of them can throw out some funny stories on some calls.
Well,
That's,
since there's some other fellow Leos in the chat, let me throw this out. All right, people want to talk about how these things, whether you could trust them, can't trust them, good, bad, ugly, whatever. All right, guys, anybody that's a first responder, law enforcement, medical, whatever. What happens when the full moon hits?
it gets crazy.
Yep.
It gets butt looking crazy out there.
Yeah, what I'm talking about. And that has that effect on people. People. What does it do
Oh,
on
it
wildlife?
does.
Look how the moon affects wildlife.
Right.
Yeah, Missouri Broad said crazy. That's the understatement. Missouri Broad. They go off the deep end. My mother worked the psych ward, and she said on full moon, she said it was standing room only, officers bringing people up there. Tammy says people are freaking crazy. Put in for the night off. You know, Tammy, they're not going to give you the night off. They're going to be like, Tammy, you got to come into work, Mama. Let's see. Do you guys have any questions? We've been going on for 2 hours. If you got any questions, we'll get them out. I've enjoyed every one of you tonight. I appreciate your raw honesty, and I was very honored to have you as the guest. And as many people have said in chat, it's good therapy to talk to people that's been there. You learn a lot. Paul, I really, 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 really appreciate you coming on. And the cowboy hat has made the whole show, buddy. Second runner up, Greg, and his bootlegger hat, and so it's you guys just rock. I don't see any more questions out there. So anything you guys want to say in closing?
Anybody that wants to see any of these creatures, I just say be careful what you wish for.
Exactly. I agree
You're
with
lucky
that
or you're
100%.
not. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. But you're lucky until you're not. Pam, Paul, anything you guys want to throw out there?
Well, for me, through all this that I've been through, there's one really good thing that has come out of this, and that is getting to meet a bunch of amazing, awesome people.
Yeah, that is true.
I mean, hands down, y'all, I tell you, people in chat, people on this screen, it's just been awesome. The people that we have got to meet through this. And, so that's what I want to say, regardless of any of the other nightmarish stuff that I've went through, there is good that's come out of this. So
A lot of good people out there.
yeah,
There is. We've met a lot of good people.
Greg, throw it out there, buddy.
Well, look, I'll just tell you exactly what Don said, what Pam and Paul said, 100%. And that really, it's amazing. Now, I'm not going to say that all groups are like that. They're welcoming and full of great people, because there's some of them that's trolls, people that want to be ignorant. We'll just say ignorant because they don't know.
yeah,
They're ignorant to facts. But I just absolutely feel blessed by the people that's come forth and that I look at like family. I mean, absolutely like family. All these people in the chat, I mean, it's just absolutely unbelievable at the quality of the people that we have been exposed to, or I guess been exposed to us. And it's overwhelming. I mean, it's absolutely overwhelming. And I'll just tell you, I feel like I've been brought to this. I don't feel like it was by accident. I feel like I've been brought to it. And y'all, I went for years. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I carried this kind of by myself. And if it hadn't been for Tal Bronco, Bill White, accidentally running up on me, and he taught me a lot, and that's how I got introduced with Kumbo Baker. I mean, Kumbo's like a brother. I mean, he's like an older brother to me, and and then I realized that me not talking to people, I wasn't helping anybody. I wouldn't help, and I knew there was people out there struggling, and that's when I'm like, caution to the wind, because what I do, I own a business. Plus, I've been an officer in the fire department for nearly 20 years. And I've also been a sworn peace officer for 16 years. 16 years I've had a badge and sworn officer. I mean, I've dedicated a lot of my life. I've been search and rescue. I was rescue squad for years. And now our fire department, we do search and rescue and fire. So, I've dedicated a lot of my life to helping people. And I realized that I had maybe a way to help people that a lot of other people didn't. And there was a lot of people out there that probably had a lot of questions and a lot of struggles. And I thought, well, I put my neck out on the line a lot for people in other ways. So why not do this? Because these people probably need somebody to talk to. They want to hear somebody else that's going through what they're going through, and there's a kinship to it. I mean, it's that flame that it's like a flame in the dark. You're in the dark, you see that flame, that little bit of light, and that gives you some hope. So that's why I chose to come out about it. I mean, I had nothing to gain. I still don't have nothing to gain. I've never made a dime. I'm not a celebrity. I mean, I do this because I know there's people struggling. And, if it hadn't been for the folks that reached out to me, I would have still been struggling. And I'm still struggling to an extent. I'm just not like I was. So that's why I chose to do it. I felt a calling. And I was actually ashamed because I went so many years and wouldn't talk to anybody, because I hope that maybe that if somebody sees this, maybe this podcast, they maybe come forth, contact Miss Vicky, contact her, talk to her, tell her about it. I mean, that's why I do the Woodwalkers with Spencer and Misty. We have people contact us, guys, that we don't we don't put them out. You know, people don't know them. I mean, it's private. They contact us in private and let us know. You know, hey, y'all just don't know what this meant because I'm hearing that there's other people out there, but you know, I'm still not comfortable to come forth. I had a buddy of mine. I've got to get him back on Woodwalkers. He's had a Bigfoot encounters, had a real good encounter. He's been on there with us. I talked to him this week. He's got one of his buddies that's seen what we think is a dog man. He said this thing was down on 4 legs, looked like a super giant wolf. It said the front end it wasn't level, it was raised in the front. And that's in Troy, Alabama. That's right here
Thank
down the
you.
road from me, very far from Flatrock.
They
But
are
I've gotta
out
get-
there.
I've
That
got a
is-
good, I've got a good friend real close to us here that seen one. Him and his wife.
They
So,
are
look,
out
y'all,
there.
I've got to get back.
The biggest
So-
crap I ever got is because I wouldn't embellish my encounter and say it was this big, huge hunk of, like you see in the thumbnails. They're toned down. That's what I saw. That's what got me into this community. You know, 2 a.m, boom, cross the road. What do? You know, who believes you? I mean, I was strange anyway, but you know what? I stand by what I see. No one's going to talk me out of it. There's a lot of us out there that when we do come out, we get ridiculed. I mean, just it's almost like a verbal beatdown. But you know, when I first got in, the Bigfoot community was not very accepting of the dogmen. So I kind of gravitated toward the Bigfoot people, and they seem to be have a little bit more common sense because some of them dogmen people are crazy, but it seems to be more accepted now because I could never understand how one group of people couldn't accept a cryptid that or a canine cryptid that someone else is saying, and you know, it's kind of like, well, people tell you didn't see a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot, and you're telling me I didn't see what I saw. But as far as community, the community's wonderful. I have the community, the people in chat, I have actually made me a better person. And by going like on different podcasts, telling my stories, talking about my near death experience, it has literally brought me closer with God and gave me closure in a lot of things. It's helped me with I still have my, you know, my anger issues, but the people have made me a better person. It's almost like they have peeled back a layer of a softness that I didn't know I still had in me. And I'm blessed for knowing them. And I think they're all wonderful. And, you know, I love their personalities. I love their humor. And it has gotten me through more than they'll ever know. And I love you all out there. And Don, I'm going to let you close us out, brother.
Well, I want to thank everybody in the chat. How many people did we have in there?
I think we hit 96 was our top.
Oh, nice. Great.
It was good for us because we normally have about 40. And
Oh,
we're okay with that.
right. Well, I would thank the people in the chat and PJ, Paul, Greg, and Miss V. And I don't know. I guess show up
Thank
for
you
the
and
next
come
show. What's that?
Invite them back, Don. Don't be shy.
Yes.
You've never had
No.
a shy bone in your body. You've never been a loss for words. I'm just going to put it out there.
No, I just say hope everyone comes back for the next show. And yeah, I hope that everybody has a good night and be safe out there.
I am going to put this out there right quick. Wendell is coming on the show to give us a gold panning class 101 and give us some tips. It's going to be a good show, so you guys jump on. I got my gold pan the other day. My husband, he's just gone crazy buying equipment. We'll see where it goes. It's going to be a good show, y'all. Good show.
I might need to watch it. I might need to pan for some gold out here in this creek.
if y'all invite us, we'll go pan anywhere.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you and God bless you all.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Love y'all.
Love you too.
But-
Bye.
Bye.